This video will describe the References button and this drop list that we see here in Structural Adjustment Rules. Actually, this button and this drop list are available in every type of rule. For example, even down in the Find Replace rules, we see the References button and the drop list. But I'll describe them here. The software will record, when you set a certain flag, which I'll show you in a minute, the software will record the references where each rule applies. And even more specific than that, where each structure applies. For example, it records approximately the first 25 references where the structure applies. So these are the places where structure number 1 of this rule applied. If we look at structure number 2, there's a different set of references. Structure number 3 has its own set, etc. So, in order to make the software record the references where a rule applies, we go over to this other screen, and when we click on the Setup button, one of the options is Record References and Rules. And when we do that, usually when you check this, first you say Clear References from Rules. I don't want to do that now. This will erase all of the references from all of the rules. So you say this. You can also say Count New Rules per Chapter. We used to, it will count the number of new transfer rules and the number of new synthesizing rules per chapter of text. And the point of all this is that you can see the numbers dropping for each subsequent chapter of text. We used to make these graphs. One of our early test languages was Korean, and it shows the number of new rules. The transfer rules are in blue, the synthesizing grammar rules are in red. So here are the number of new rules per chapter. And the point of this is you can see that the curve drops off to 0 pretty quickly. In other words, we're doing less and less work as we work through more chapters of the text. So that's why we have this option. And this is where you can record the number of new rules per chapter if you check this box, Count New Rules per Chapter. Now when you check this box, Record References per Rules, and you say OK, you'll notice that this button is in red now. And the reason is because this significantly slows down the translation process. Generally, you don't want to record the number of new rules, or record the references in each rule. You only do this occasionally. So generally, we don't check this box. When you have it checked, here's sort of a warning. It's in red because it slows down the translation process. So I'm going to uncheck that. And now we're back to normal. So now going back, we can look here. So as I said, these are the rules where this first structure applies. For the second structure, here are the references. For the third structure, etc. And what this References button does is, let's say you edit this particular structure. Now when you edit a rule and say OK, all of the references are erased from that rule, because after you've edited it, who knows where that rule will apply again. So these will be erased. But let's say you make some changes, and then you want to check these particular verses again. You can say References, and it says, do you want to clear the problem text references before adding these references? What the software is going to do is it will copy these references to what we call the problem texts. So let's say yes. Do you want to clear the problem text references before adding these references? We'll say yes. So now it just copied these 4 references to what we call problem text. So let's remember these, Genesis 13:9 to Luke 10:1. Now I'm going to say cancel. Genesis 13:9 to Luke 10:1. So now if we go over here and select problem texts, here are those 4 verses, Luke 13:9 to Luke 10:1. So it copied those particular references here. And now, if we click to generate, it will generate just those particular verses. There are 3 options here. Our problem text, there are multiple texts. And for this one, this is where you translate multiple books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, etc. So when you click this one and click Generate, the software will translate those. If you select Problem Text, it will just select the verses that are in here. And if you don't select either of these, then it will do just one passage. Right now it's set to Genesis 1:1 through Exodus 25:40. But that's what that button does. Coming back to this rule, structural adjustments. Whenever you click this button, you'll have the option of clearing the problem text, clearing the references from the problem text, and then copying all of those references to the problem text. And then you can retranslate those particular verses. And as I mentioned, this button and this drop list are available in every type of rule. I'd like to mention one other thing. When you're looking at these verses, you can select one, and then the software will display this dialog with the target translation and the English. So you can see all the places where this structure applied just by selecting a verse down here in the drop list.